does that even mean, Bowers Game Corner?
Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another game review. Today I'm very excited to check out the Munchkin Collectible card game from Steve Jackson Games. This specifically is the Wizard and Bard starter set. This is for 2 players. It'll take you 20 to 40 minutes to play, and it's for ages 10 plus. And the Munchkin Collectible card game is a CCG based on the immensely popular Munchkin game. In case you don't know what a CCG is, that means that you will be able to play the game as much as you want with one of these boxes, but there also are random, completely random booster packs that you'll be able to buy to beef up your deck, get deck build, and do all sorts of different things. I enjoy the snot out of Munchkin, the game about fighting monsters and acquiring loot and leveling yourself up and screwing people over. Not the biggest CCG fan, so does this combination work well together? Let's open it up, and I'll tell you what I think. Alrighty then, we're going to take a look at what you're going to get inside of the Munchkin Collectible card game. So first and foremost, we have our handy dandy rule booklet. It's one large page, double-sided, full color. It's got a couple pictures, some illustrations, a little glossary on the back, and it's very well done except for one glaring issue, which is the fact that it doesn't really mention one specific card called Mischief cards that much. It mentions a little bit up here in the interrupts phase, but it doesn't specifically mention that. And while most people will be able to figure out how the Mischief cards work, I felt like it was a really glaring oversight they did not include that in here, but luckily I can teach you how to use them right now. But in the Munchkin Collectible card game, this is a collectible card game where you'll be able to buy these booster packs right here, which will come with 2 different characters, and that'll get you started with the 40 card decks you need for each of these different characters, so you'll be able to play 2 players, and also comes with a 12 card booster pack inside, which is kind of nice as well. But you're going to be getting these booster packs. So this isn't a booster pack, this is a starter pack. You're going to get the booster packs and you'll unlock new cards, and they each have their own rarity, uncommon, rares, commons, all sorts of different stuff like that. Most people are pretty familiar with the CCG model, so I'm not going to go into it too much. But in this game, what you're going to try and do is you're either going to try to nil or kill your opponent. That means either take away all the health point off their hero or nil them down to when they have to draw a card, they can't draw any more cards, because at that point, you will have won the game. So let's go over the components. Let's get into the gameplay. So first component-wise, you're going to have a whole bunch of these tokens right here. They come in increments of 1s and 5s. You will use these to keep track of health on various different characters. And also, there's some cards that will say, place tokens on this, and when you get to X tokens, you can do something, or tap this, and you can do something. There's various different cards that will be affected by these tokens. Also in front of each player, you're going to have one of these level trackers right here. If you're familiar with Munchkin, once you get to level 10, you will win the game. That's not the case in this game, but at the end of each turn, you are going to, at the end of each of your turns, I should say, you're going to get to level up your character by moving up 1 on this, and this is how much money you will get to draw up to. So for instance, if you were level 3, if you had 1 gold in front of you, you would get to draw 2 additional gold to get up to level 3. If you spend all your gold, you will draw 3 gold. So as you progress, you're going to level up, which means you're going to draw more money and means you can play bigger cards. You also have this runaway / limp away token, and each player will have one of these. And you're going to be fighting a lot of monsters. Your opponent is going to be sending a lot of monsters your way, and sometimes you'll just want to run away or limp away from them. I will talk more about this token in a little bit. You're going to have a dice, which you'll use to determine first player, and also there will be some cards that will say roll the dice and do X, depending on what number you rolled. There's a lot of different variety of cards in this game, and I imagine they're either going to go even more buck wild as the game gets more and more popular, hopefully. So I imagine you're going to get even more use out of the dice. But the star of the show with pretty much every CCG is going to be cards, cards, and more cards. So let's go over some of the different cards that you will see in the game, and then we'll get into the actual gameplay itself. So each player is going to have a hero in front of them, and they will have a special ability. They'll have health right down here, and once they run out of health, and you'll keep track of that with these little tokens, they are dead, the other player will win. But each one's going to have a special ability, Zap, and that is the common phrase. It means tap, but they say zap, so there you go. But for instance, this guy reduced the gold cost of the next Mischief card you played this turn by 1. So pretty much every time you get once per turn, you're going to play a Mischief card and get a $1 discount on it, which is a very useful special ability if you build your deck around Mischief, because that is one of the biggest aspects of this game is the deck building, and I'm here to tell you I'm very pleasantly surprised with the deck building. It's very smooth, it's very simple. you're just going to have 40 cards, and that's it. And the cards, the limitations are you can either use these gray background cards right here, which means everybody can use them, or you can use your specific color right here. And that's all you need to know for the deck building. You just find 40 cards you really like, put them together, see what happens. Now let's go over some of the various different types of cards. One of the most primary type of cards is going to be the monsters. You're going to play monsters to fight your opponent and try to kill them. Each one generally is going to have a special ability down here, which you'll read and you'll activate. Down here is how much damage they're going to do. Over here is how much health they have. And the top left is how much it's going to cost to put this card out for your opponent to fight. And I'll talk more about that later. So next you're going to have locations. You can have one location played down in front of you, and it will impact the game in a variety of different ways. So this comes into play. Zapped, increase the gold cost of all monsters by 1. Hired monsters gain 2 damage until the end of the fight. So while this is going to raise the price to raise out monsters, this is going to speed up the game because monsters are going to deal more damage. So that's a location. There's also ally cards. So these cards will go in front of you. They'll do a variety of different things. They can defend you so you don't take damage from monsters. Some of them, for instance, when this is squished, you may squish any card stuck to your hero. So this guy is a bodyguard. He's just going to be taking damage for you. You also are going to be able to include loot and weapons because, as you know, this is Munchkin, which obviously means you need loot and you need weapons. And they have a very simple system for equipping these as well. So there's a number in the upper left-hand corner. If I am up to level 4, I can equip this card. However, let's see if I have another cheap one in here. I just kind of grabbed a bunch of cards randomly to show you the game. Perfect. I could not have both of these cards in front of me because they do exceed my current level. So as you progress your level, so once I get to level 5, then I could have both of these cards out. So how you do it is you look at the stars in the upper left-hand corner, and as long as that number combined is less than the level or equal to the level of your character, then you can have them both out. And for instance, this one will help me fight other monsters, and it also has defense as well. And you're going to be committing those to fights. The last kind of card, and the one that's not really mentioned in the rule booklet, are mischief cards. And mischief cards, in my opinion, the funnest cards in the game. Do I really not put any in here? There's probably tons. Oh, there's one. So mischief cards are cards that you're going to be able to play. And as far as I can tell, despite the fact it's not in the rules and the actions you can take during Munchkining, you can just do these whenever you want as long as it's your turn. So for instance, this one, kaboom, deal 5 damage to any target. That is huge, absolutely huge. But 5 damage, it's going to cost you 5 as well. And there's a lot of cheaper mischief as well. I know when I was playing as the orange deck, which I actually like that one best, they have a lot of cheap ones. So Mosh Pit, take 2 damage, then deal 1 damage to all allies. Mischief, stick this to a target hero card. That hero takes 1 damage when their hero card is zapped. Let me tell you, that one is really good against the wizard because the wizard really likes to get that cheap discount, and this can, well, get them kind of tromboned. And as you can tell, there obviously is the signature humor in the game for Munchkin, as you would expect, no less. Now let's go over a mock hand so you can see exactly how it goes, because it is a very simple, clean game. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take turns going from turn to turn. You roll the dice to see who goes first. First player is going to get 1 coin to start off with. Second player is going to get 2 coins to start off with, and then you will be on your merry way. So let's just go over the warm-up phase, and I'll read it off to you and explain how it works. The first thing, you're going to flip your runaway marker from limp away back to runaway if it was on limp away. Pretty self-explanatory. And this phase really is just the cleanup phase and doing everything to get ready for the turn phase. Next, you're going to unzap all your tapped cards. So, boom, this is tapped. Now I untap it. You'll do the reckoning, which means any abilities that trigger, so read the text on the card, will happen. So this is the phase in which they would happen. You're going to unstash stuff. So stashed cards are going to be a separate pile that you will have over here. And these cards are cards... we'll get to those in a little bit, but you will have cards generally in your stash. These are going to be monsters that were not defeated, some cards that will come back into your hand, and essentially, most of the time in this game, depending on the strategy you play, you are going to have a wide variety of cards in your hand to play at a given time, unless you have a specific strategy that says otherwise. and then you're going to draw one card. And on your turn, you will always draw one card. If you can't draw a card, you will lose the game. But at the beginning of the game, you are going to start with 6 cards in your hand. So since it's the beginning of the turn, I would draw up to 7. You take a look at your cards, and we are ready to rock and roll. Also, at the beginning of the game, if you don't like the hand you're dealt, you can mulligan. But that's kind of a minor thing. So then we get to the Munchkinning phase, and this is a very free-form phase where you'll be able to do a variety of different things. You can play loot down in front of you, but once again, you have to look at the stars in the upper left-hand corner. And this is going to go what's called in your hoard area, which is your cards you have in front of you. If you played Munchkin, you should be pretty familiar with this. But right now, let's pretend I'm level 5, which means I definitely could play this loot down in front of me. It's an armor, so zap, prevent 1 damage, dealt to target ally. This is an interrupt. So I can just put that down in front of mine. I don't have to pay anything. It just comes out of my level. So that's pretty nice as well. You can also squish loot. So as I mentioned, you are at the mercy of what level you are. So let's just say I want to get a really good piece of loot out here. I could squish this loot, which means it is sent to my discard pile, which is not normally where you want cards to do, but that is an option that you have. Next, you can play a location down in front of yourself. Pretty simple. So this comes into play, zap, so I put it like this. But now I have a location in front of myself. You can only have one. You can also squish a location. Once again, pretty self-explanatory. Get rid of it so you can put something new out there. You can play an ally, which is going to cost you a coin. So I just say, all right, I'm paying a coin, placing this ally out here, and boom, now I have an ally in front of me, which my robes are actually going to help protect the ally. But the biggest thing you're going to do, is do mischief, which is surprisingly not mentioned in here. But the other biggest thing you're going to do is you're going to get into fights. And I'll explain to you how fights work. Once again, very simple system, but actually a push your luck bluffing kind of system, which you would not normally expect. So when you fight, here's what you're going to do. You're going to declare that I'm fighting. You're going to put a card down in front of you. And you want to pay attention to the cost in the upper left-hand corner. So, you know what? I would put this card in here. But now I'm going to put money on top of this card. Now, if I put $2 on top of this card, I'm not cheating. That just means that I'm paying for this card to come out. However, I do have the option to put 1 on here, or 0 on here, or 3 of my dollars on here if I had that much money on here. And you do that to potentially scare your opponent, because most of the time, unless you have a very powerful deck, you are not going to be fighting these monsters a lot of the time. You're just trying to survive a lot in this game, especially with the decks that we had. So now I have this out here. I have $3 on top of this, and my opponent has a couple choices. The first choice they can do is they can face the monster, which means I'm going to flip over this card. I'm going to pay all the money on top of here, even though I overpaid, and then the effect on the bat is going to happen. So let's just say this is the example that happens. When this is in your stash, all beastie monsters gain once. That does not impact anything right now, but I'm going to deal 1 damage to my opponent, which means, boom, they would be down to 19 health. And then this is going to go face up to what's called my stash. And we talked a little bit about this earlier. Your stash cards are cards that you will get back at the beginning of next round. So I will get that card back. He knows I have that card, which kind of adds to the game, the bluffing aspect of the game. Now, what also could have happened is I might have only paid 1 for that, which means I would then get caught cheating, which means I'd get my dollar back and this would still go into my stash, but then I would actually take a damage myself. So there is a bluffing aspect to this game. Also, I could have played a card that's not even a monster. I could have played this location card right here. And you know, if he catches me cheating, then I would take the damage as well. Now, what happens when he decides to face the monster? So let's just say he doesn't want to face the monster. So I put this card right here, this 3 right here, because that's a very nice card. And he says, you know what? I'm not facing that. That is just bad news for me. He can flip over this token, and he can run away from the monster. So if he does that, the monster goes right over here into my stash, but it's face down. I get my $3 back, and I can continue to send monsters to him. And that's very important. I get my $3 back. Now, the next time, he doesn't have run away, but he can still limp away, which means he's just going to take 2 damage instead of just running away. So he doesn't have to take the damage on the card, but he does have to take 2 damage, which is exactly why I might, for instance, play this location right now. And I might put $2 on this location, because here's the thing. He doesn't know that that's location. And he's like, man, $2 on that card, that might be something that's going to do 3 or 4 damage or do something even worse. So you know what? I'm just going to limp away from this because I'm just going to take the 2 damage. So he would take 2 damage and I would get my money back. And I put this location over here. And as you can see, I just made my opponent take 2 damage because I tricked him, I bluffed him into thinking that I had a monster down there. So as you can see, hopefully in that example, there is a lot of bluffing in this game, suppressing your luck, because that was the kind of move where if he makes me flip that card over, I myself would take that 1 damage. And that's really the heart of the game, at the core of the game right there. But so you're going to fight, you're going to send as many monsters you had the money to do, and then you're going to get to what's called the cooldown phase. So you're going to level yourself up. So I would go from 5 to 6. You're going to then get gold up to this number right here. So I would get 6 gold, and then that would be the end of my turn, and it would move to my opponent. And as I mentioned, you go back and forth until you nil or kill your opponent. And that, in a nutshell, is what you're going to be doing inside the Munchkin collectible card game. Alrighty then, Munchkin CCG from Steve Jackson Games. What are my final thoughts? Let's go over the pros, let's go over the cons. First, on the con side, 2 players, restricted player count. Now, obviously, I'm sure there's going to be ways you can play 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 players, and they will come out with that. It's just going to be a thing, as it is with most other CCGs. But honestly, I don't know if I'd really want to do that. It feels like a very clean system at 2 players, but that's something for the pros. Huge con with this game, obviously, is it is a CCG. And while, yes, you could just buy this box and be content with this box and play this box 5, 10, 15, 20 times, you will want to get some of those booster packs to add more cards, to diversify your deck, to get more heroes so you can make different decks. And that is not going to be something that everybody has the time or the resources or the money to do. I guess resources and money would be the same thing. So it does have the typical CCG issue where it is somewhat of a money pit, but honestly, I feel like most people going into this should know that. Another con that I have with the game is that in the rules, it does not mention the mischieving cards pretty much at all. It mentions it ever so slightly in the interrupts phase, but it just seems like such a glaring oversight that they did not mention that you could play mischief cards during the Munchkinning phase. I'm 95% sure that's how that works, but still, you need to put that in the rule booklet, because while I was able to figure it out relatively easy, you know, I played a lot of games, so I'm not sure if other people will be able to figure that out quite as easily. It just seems like a really glaring oversight, especially from a company that's put out as many rule booklets and good rule booklets as as Steve Jackson Games. Also, if you do not like the humor in Munchkin, in the base Munchkin, this humor might not hit with you because it is in that same ilk. They do have a lot of inside jokes. It's not the kind of thing where it's going to ruin the game for somebody if you've never played the original Munchkin, but if you have played the original Munchkin, there will be jokes that you're going to be like, oh, that's in the game. We got the gazebo here, got this there. So that's nice. I guess it's actually kind of a pro, but for some people it is going to be a con. If you did not like the humor in Munchkin, you probably won't like the humor in this game. Any other cons? 2 players, CCG. Some people are going to complain, especially the hardcore people. I have a feeling some people are not going to like how the deck building works in this game, because it's just a very, very, very simple system, which I'm actually going to talk more about in the pros, because I think it's fantastic. But some people, I'm sure, are going to break it, and they're going to have like 12 copies of one card, because it just says in the deck building phase where you can build your own deck, it's just 40 cards, your color and the gray ones. So I'm sure someone's going to find some OP combination, just have a whole bunch in there, but that's your typical CCG stuff as well. That's all I got. Moving on to the pros. I'm not the biggest CCG fan. I got into Magic for a short stint just because I wanted to do it with an ex-girlfriend. But for the most part, I have steered clear of CCGs. I didn't get into the big Dice Masters thing. I tried to, but I didn't have anybody to play it with. And I feel like the Munchkin CCG might be the game to convert me. And there's a lot to like about this game. So first and foremost, if you like the humor in Munchkin, it is there. The artwork is there, and I like that. I love the deck building aspect in this game. It is a very clean, simple deck construction, I should say, thing. It's just 40 cards. Get your color, get gray, boom, you got yourself a hero. I also like the wide variety of things that the cards do. There is a lot of different cards that do interesting things. Like there's a card in this deck where you literally have to drop the card from like up here, and there, you know, there's stuff where you're rolling dice, and I'm sure they're going to get even crazier as it progresses and as it gains popularity, which I like as well. I like the graphic design. I felt like the graphic design was well done. Most of the cards are relatively easy to understand, and aside from the lack of mischief, that's the big thing. The fact that they didn't put mischief in there, this is a very well done rule booklet. It's got a big glossary, it's got keywords, there's not that much rules. It's a very clean system, which I liked an awful lot. Also, this is a very quick game. I mean, I did a live gameplay of this, and it was only our second game, so we were still, you know, kind of learning the ebb and flow of the game, and it was a 30-minute stream, and that was with us giving our impressions at the end. This is a snappy game, which is something I really like. I like the booster packs. I mean, obviously, I like the booster packs, and I had a lot of fun kind of constructing my deck. You know, the first and second time I played, you know, the second time I added a couple cards that here and there that sounded cool, but then the third and fourth time I was like, ooh, I kind of want to add this card because this would really go good with this other card, and then I got this thing which is going to let me nil my deck, which I don't like, but it's going to let me draw cards, and I can have these two monsters together. This is going to be a really good combination. I like that an awful lot. I really like the push your luck, or the bluffing aspect of the game, and the push your luck to a certain extent aspect of this game as well, as you're, no, I guess it's mostly bluffing, where when you have your opponent on the ropes, when they've used their allies, when they've used their loot, and they're sitting there just kind of like, oh man, do I take the pounding that this monster is going to give me, or do I limp away? And I like that aspect of the game because that's when you kind of get a little bit gutsy, and you're like, well, I got this mischief card I can put down here. Maybe I put a coin on that. Maybe he's just going to take the 2 damage. I get the coin back, and then I can put that coin on this location card. And he's either going to have to call my bluff, or he's going to have to take 2 more damage. And I like that aspect of the game. It kept the game being snappy, being quick, and I really did enjoy that. Now, one other con that I did have with this game that I did want to mention is that you can get into funks where your opponent just has monsters, like lots of monsters in your hand, and you might not have loot, and you might not have allies, and you are just taking damage, especially at the beginning of the game. I would like to see a lot more ally cards and a lot more cheap loot cards. Now, granted, you could deck construct to make that into your deck, but at least with the base deck, I was a little bit concerned about the lack of the amount of cheap stuff in there. But in the end, the Munchkin collectible card game, I think a lot of people are going to think it's great, and I think as they continue to release more content for it and more cards for it, it's only going to get better. I will be keeping this. I'll probably buy a booster pack here or there. I'm kind of hoping they send me other starter decks so I can experiment with some of the different heroes and a lot of the different cards, and I might have the CCG bug. So that is the Munchkin collectible card game. I'll put it like this. If you are a Munchkin fan, I think this is something that you might want to check out. It's very quick. It's 2 players, which is 2 things you do not expect from Munchkin. It's like 2 players, very quick. No, that's not the Munchkin I know. But still, I think if you like the Munchkin humor, if you like the Munchkin gameplay, I think this encapsulates enough of that. You're going to enjoy it. If you like CCGs, I don't honestly know, because this feels, I imagine this is much more simple than a lot of CCGs, and I've tried to play some other CCGs in the past, and they felt more complex than this. Maybe that's just from crappy rules, but that's what I have to say about that. Also, if you're just interested in this game because you like you like playing games, I will say the rules are very easy to learn and to understand aside from that mischief oversight. So there's the Munchkin collectible card game, one that I think a lot of people are going to like. I do expect this to be very popular, and there you go. If you enjoyed this review, please be sure to click on that subscribe button down below in the comments below. Let me know the original Munchkin, yay or nay. And also, if it's a nay, would you still be interested in the Munchkin collectible card game, a CCG off the game that is vastly different because, as I mentioned, 2 players and short. Me personally, I do enjoy Munchkin, and I also enjoyed this. But then again, I'm kind of an Omni gamer. I like a lot of different kinds of games. Kind of why I started reviewing. But let me know in the comments below. Munchkin, yay or nay? And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.